We can't tell you how frustrating it was for us to upload our podcast when we first got started. The websites were clunky, we had data limits, and it was all so confusing. That is, until we found Zencastr. Zencastr is an online platform built for podcasters to not only upload their podcasts, track their listeners, connect their audience, and so much more. Zencastr plans have no upload or download limits, so your cost won't grow as you do. Embed their player that automatically updates to show the latest episode of your show. Zencastr lets you see your podcast downloads along with your traffic, website, and Google Analytics. Zencastr also supports multiple podcasts under one account. The best part is, if you already have a podcast on another platform, you can switch to Zencastr with a one-click importer, all free of charge. So what are you waiting for? Head over to howtomakeapodcast.co/Zencastr to start saving time and money with your podcast today. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Make a Podcast. I am Nick Miller, your co-host, and I'm joined by my best good buddy, my friend, Mr. John Bunn. John, how are you doing today?
I am doing really well. I don't know if you know or not, but last week we had a press kit that we released in our shop, our first product in our shop, and a bunch of you guys bought it, so I'm in a really good mood. Everything's going well, running smoothly here in Oklahoma. It's hot. Family's good. Life is good. I can't complain. How are you?
Well, I'm doing really well. I don't have anything to complain about. Things are just going well. Things are going great. My wedding business is going well. Our how to film weddings business is going well. How to make a podcast business is going well. Everything's just turn it up, Millhouse.
I don't know what that means.
It's a Simpsons reference. If you were a Simpsons person, you would get it. But anyway, so today, this week's topic, we're talking more about Facebook groups and why you should have them. And last week, we spent a little bit of time talking about the reason why you should build a Facebook group for your podcast community. And so we wanted to do kind of a quick recap right now before we get into this week's topic about growing your Facebook group. So a few things that are great about having a podcast group is, one, it really creates community. It's a place for your listeners to interact. If you're running it right and you're doing everything right, they should have something in common that they can all talk about, that they can be excited about, and it really helps you build that community. Another thing is you can get feedback for whenever you have episodes or need ideas or whatever. So John, why don't you talk about that for a sec?
Yeah, I mean, in our episodes, we will post and we get immediate feedback on if people find it to be helpful or not. I mean, you can just tell by the interaction on the comments, the questions, the things that come in. So having that real-time data is huge in your Facebook group. So that was the second thing we talked about. The third thing, which I feel like is probably the most important thing, is it builds loyalty. And if you're in our How to Make a Podcast Facebook group, you're seeing our faces every day, and it's building this loyalty and this recognition. Nick and I are the faces behind How to Make a Podcast or How to Film Weddings, so people feel connected to you.
Can I share something with this building loyalty? So yesterday in our How to Film Weddings community, a newer person asked a question that had to do with audio. He messed up the audio stuff, and there were a few people that kind of jumped on him really early and kind of ripped him apart and made fun of him and were like, well, maybe you need to second shoot more. Maybe you need to do this more. Maybe you need to. And then I got really frustrated by that. So I started going in and commenting and supporting the guy. I'm like, dude, he messed up. He knows that. How can he help? And whenever I started commenting, then a bunch of other people in our community, because I commented, started standing up for the guy and supporting the guy and be like, hey, you messed up. Here's how you can improve. Here's how you can do better. And because we built that loyalty with our listeners, we know what we're talking about in the community that we're involved the community that we're a part of and we've created, we have that loyalty and people listen to. I got 5 DMs yesterday telling me thank you for, standing up and not letting, people be jerks and bullies and that kind of stuff in our forums. So building that loyalty, for your product, but also your ideas and the things that you believe in, it's really, really powerful in there. And then quick segue to the next thing that we're going to talk about that we touched on last week is you can promote your own podcast and also products. We talked about how there's so many podcast groups out there and everything seems to be like white noise, right? Mm-hmm. Because everyone's like, hey, brand new podcast, fresh new podcast, big episode, all these different ideas. And it all gets lost because everyone's saying the same thing. Everyone's sharing the same thing. And so if you have your own group, you can promote your podcast. We have 2 groups. So each week we're saying, hey, new podcast. We link it to our blog, which is on our website, which then takes them to all of the different players, podcatchers that you could listen to. And, we're pushing that. And then, whenever we have new products, we're able to sell and push those things to our community and say, hey, we have this new product and you should check it out.
Yeah, in this last week, like I said, we put out an episode about press kits and getting monetization, and several people had purchased it and had great results, and they had said, hey, I love this. This was great. And so I was able to send them a message and just say, hey, if you want to share your experience on our, in our forum there, in our Facebook group, go for it. And so we had a few people just had already purchased it and said how amazing it was. And when they went in and posted, I was able to mark it as an announcement. So if you came into the group, you might have seen that first and it got your mind thinking, maybe I need this press kit, or maybe I need, and so it is this place where, because we've been building loyalty, because we've been getting feedback, because we have community, we're able to promote things about once every, 20 days or so. We're not really trying to promote a paid product more than once a month or something like that, but it gives you the ability to promote things. Not only your podcast, you can promote reviews, you can promote people, you can promote, success stories. There's all kinds of things you can promote in there. And Facebook groups right now just allow you to really do that in such a way that I don't know anywhere else. Just by marking them as announcements or going live in your group or different things like that, you can really promote certain things and build up hype. And what happened is, by using our email list that we've talked about, we've been using, this loyalty, we're able to announce this product, build up to this product, say that this product exists, and then now dozens of people are purchasing it, and it makes us money, but it also helps you, and you tell people, and that's how that continues to go. And so promoting, it's not just to promote, but it also just helps you grow your business, and it's that slow, steady dig. More and more people are purchasing the press kit. More and more people are happy about it. They're going to tell others about it. I do want to say something, Nick, and before we move on, this last week in How to Film Weddings, our other show, we did a sale on our consultation guideline. And this is a consultation walkthrough that I made in May of 2019. Nick and I put this together, and we ran an episode about, we walked through this consultation guide last week. And in conjunction with that, we did a 25% off sale, and we were able to send that sale to our email list. We were able to talk about it in the podcast. We were able to put it in our Facebook group like we're talking. And it was almost 100 people purchased that consultation guide last week alone, making us several $1,000s for a product that we made 18, 15, whatever months ago. Nick sent me a text and he's just like, we made this much off of this. And I'm just like, how is this real life? And it's because we slowly do those things like what Nick is talking about. We're digging, where you're making sure that the new person, that shoots weddings is feeling comfortable and a safe place. And we've cultivated this community, and we've worked so hard to get it to this point, and we're very protective of that. And so I know that's a lot for the promote your podcast, but the last thing, Nick, I'll let you talk about it since I've been talking a lot, in our recap from last week.
Yeah, and the last thing that we want to say is it's more places for you to run advertisements for your show to attract potential sponsors. Now whenever sponsors we're talking to them, we can say, hey, our wedding How to Film Weddings group has almost 7,000 members in it. Okay, and there's 7,000 people that are your market, the people that you want to reach. And so we have so many people in there there, and we are able to sell that. We're able to leverage that. So with our group, that's just another place where we can put their logo on our banner, where we can run weekly specials. With one of our sponsors, we are currently running some giveaways in our How to Film Weddings group, and so each week we're posting different things about signing up and win this, and it's a win-win relationship. We're gathering more email addresses, we're getting email addresses for our sponsor, and then they're giving away something that costs them not a ton, but the cost of the giveaway is well worth it for the email addresses in their mind that they are getting. So now that they have people in their ecosystem, and they can just continue to push their great products and services to them. So it's another thing that you can do to help promote advertisers and help them, and they definitely see value in a Facebook group, in a community that's not the wild west, a community that has two people that have a face on it, that are involved with the group, that have a vested interest in the group, and appreciate and know what's going on. And so it's just another way to really up the ante of showing value to your potential sponsors.
Yeah, and all of those things, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, be sure to go back. There's a little bit more. But in this week's episode, we really wanted, last week we showed the strategy for the group itself, but this week we wanted to dive into how we have grown both of our groups. We've done, we have around 7,000 people, like Nick said, in How to Film Weddings. We've already passed 3,000 in How to Make a Podcast in a very short time. So we wanted to start by talking about how we grew How to Film Weddings, which was a more organic approach. We didn't spend any money for quite a while. So, Nick, why don't we talk about, if you can rewind back to a little over a year and a half ago, whenever we decided, we talked about how we decided to do the group, but what were the things that we focused on right when we got going to get people into the group? What should the listeners out there be thinking about if they're trying a more organic approach?
Yeah. So if you're trying for a more organic approach, and I think that most people where they are starting, that's probably where they are, because unless you have something else where you can really sink some money into it, like just doing word of mouth and doing it for free is the way that most people are going to go. And so when we started How to Film Weddings, we started this group, and we just started inviting all of the friends that we had that we knew would be interested in this group, or, John and I have been in the business for a while. And so we have a lot of Facebook friends that are in the industry that we could invite to be a part of that group. So that was something that was really helpful. One thing that's really cool is whenever you invite new friends and people accept, Facebook will tell you. And so you can actually create a post, and it will tag up to 100 of the new, most recent people that have joined you in the group, because I think 100 is the most that you can tag in a single post. And so you just click one button, it adds all them, you write a little thing, welcome to the group, and we're so excited. Hey, if you guys want to know, let them know what the group is about, and then if you guys could do us a favor, and anyone that might be interested in a group like this, please invite them so that we can grow this community, so that we can do that. That's really how we started growing organically. You as the host, I think when it comes to growing a group organically, can only do so much. You only actually know so many people. And so the more that you can get others hooked in, the more that you can get loyal listeners, the more that you can get advocates for your podcast to do some of the legwork for you or with you, actually do it with you, that is going to grow your Facebook group faster.
Yeah, when we started our group, there, especially now, Facebook is running commercials on TV telling you to, join Facebook groups. They're really pushing groups. And a couple of things, from the beginning, we didn't want to just start a group to start another group. We had intentionality and purpose behind the group. And so we laid out things like, we want this to be a safe place for beginners and veterans. We want this to be a place that's not the Wild West. We want this to be a place where we have daily conversation, but we wanted to be the hub if we saw the value, especially in the wedding videography world, that if we're a place where people go to talk about things and and they feel safe to talk about things, this is where they're going to go check in when they have 5 minutes away from their editing or their work or whatever, if they need a break. And so if you can control that and be the place where people go, you can be iTunes instead of the artist. iTunes is making money all the time, and because that's where people go to buy their music. Not all people, but the point being is, like, we wanted to be more of a hub. So whenever conversations were to be had, whether it be a new camera release or a new whatever or a thing, like, people would come to the group to interact, and the more they interact with the group, the more that it would grow. And so we did start by inviting friends and asking them to invite others. And then the next thing, like I was saying, is we made it very clear with our goal with the group to not be like others. And that goal, and we would say it, it's like, we're not just another group. We're here to help each other get better. We will not allow, people being unkind. We're not talking politics in this group. We're not talking religion in this group. We're talking about how to film weddings, how to make more money shooting weddings, and at the beginning, you have to kind of really make sure
have to be a jerk. I mean, for lack, you really have
lots
to
of posts.
You have to delete a lot of, especially if your group is in a niche where there are already some established groups and they have rules in those established groups, then it's going to be really hard for people to retrain how they think. Now we see, because there are people that they post in multiple groups, right? They post the same question, they post the same thing. And there are people that when it's a topic or way that they post it or whatever, they will not post in our group because they know that we will not approve of it, but they post it in other groups. And so it's just something you have to be intentional. You have to be clear. And going on with that, especially in the beginning, you have to treat it kind of like a job, like you're working to grow it. You need to interact with the people that are there. You need to be welcoming anytime for probably the first, what would you say, 2, 3, 4 months, maybe even 6 months. Whenever people commented and asked questions, both John and I were in there commenting, trying to help best that we can because we wanted to show people that we were involved in growing this group. Now, today, 15 months later or whatever, we're not as involved in answering every single question because we have a big community of people that are willing to help, but we are still involved and we are still commenting and still asking and answering questions. So you need to help, especially in the beginning, to work and grow it.
Another thing we did, and as we created and steered the conversation. So we do things like daily threads in our group 5-6 times a week, where today, as we're recording, is a Tuesday, and we have Teaser Tuesday where you can share one of your most recent wedding film teasers, and we're crafting that toward. And if you think about how to make a podcast, like if you're going into other podcast groups, most of the time it's just people spamming the group, like we talked about last week. They're just saying, listen to my new episode, and like, who out there is wanting to get on these groups to just listen to other people's episodes? It's not very often, and it's very spammy, and it's a very like short-term, short-minded thinking of how to get people to download your podcast. And so we wanted to eliminate and bring that amount of stuff down in our group. We don't allow people just to post their episodes, but we wanted to create a place where people can post their episodes, and if people want to give feedback and critique, they can do that within a thread. So it's like intentional and on purpose. So 1 to 2 times a week, we'll have a different thread inside of How to Make a Podcast where people can share their podcast. Same thing in How to Film Weddings. People love sharing their wedding films, and if you go in other video groups for film or wedding films, it's just people spamming the group. Watch my newest film. They're trying to get views. They're trying to, make themselves famous in the industry, and that's not what our group is there for. And it's the most annoying part about being in other groups. And so, being intentional about that takes a lot of time at the beginning. I remember at the beginning, Nick, we would post a question or a thread, and like one person would interact or 2 people would interact, and I would always interact back with 2 or 3 questions, trying to get them, or tagging other people in the group. What do you think about this, Nick? What do you think about this, Rick? I don't know. And so what would happen is the more people you would tag, the more they would get involved. But if you're not creating something that stands out differently from other groups, if it doesn't add value to what they're doing, they're not going to want to stick around. So I see a lot of people create groups and they, add 50, 60 people and it all join the group, and nothing really happens different than other groups, and nothing really happens to make me want to like interact, and nothing happens to add value. So I'm just like, I'm part of a group, but I'm not like, I'll unfollow the group even though I'm in the group. Or so you have to have a thought. You have to think, what do they want and how can I give that to them in a way that helps me?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing, with How to Film Weddings, we had a pretty substantial following in that group before we ever did any kind of paid advertising. I think that we had close to 3,500 3,500 before we started trying to grow it with money. It came about, we started doing that about the time whenever we launched our course, our wedding videography course. And that's how we did it that way. So we kind of took a different approach than we did with How to Make a Podcast group. We kind of waited until we had a following and then we started paying for it. But with How to Make a Podcast, we promoted that group and we're paying for people to be a part of it first, and then we followed it up by doing this stuff. Yep. And so we're going to continue this conversation about growing your group and how to grow it faster and how we did How to Make a Podcast right after this break.
If you have a pulse, you probably hate the subject of taxes and running the bookkeeping portion of your business. But like it or not, if you want to be a successful podcaster, you are going to have to pay attention to your numbers. But don't worry, we have the answer for you, Core Financial. Our friends over at Core Financial have taken the pressure off of us so we can focus on what we love doing most, running our podcast. They take care of all of our taxes, monthly bookkeeping, financial plans, and make sure we take full advantage of all of the tax benefits we qualify for. It just feels good knowing we aren't going to get a big surprise during tax season. If you are serious about building a business with your podcast, head on over to howtomakeapodcast.co/core to see what they can do for you.
So you've got everything you need for your podcast. You've recorded your audio and video. You're so excited, but wait, you don't know how to master the audio or edit the video of your podcast. We know someone who can help. The podcast editors. Picture this. You record both audio and video for your podcast. You upload it to your remote editor, and a few days later, your podcast is ready for you to upload and push to the world. What will you do with your extra time? Connect with sponsors? Grow your Facebook group? Start that project or even course you have dreamed of for months? The possibilities are endless. We are blown away by the podcast editors and love working with them and using their services. They can edit audio, video, or both for your podcast. Don't get stuck trying to do this on your own. Get in touch with the podcast editors today. If you'd like to save 50% off of your first project, head over to howtomakeapodcast.co/thepodcasteditors. All right, and we are back from break, and we're going to jump into our question of the day presented by Zencast. Zencast is our podcast host of choice. If you want more information about that, head to howtomakeapodcast.co/Zencast. John, our question of the day is this: can you pay to grow your group faster?
Oh, yes, you can. And I have seen that firsthand with How to Make a Podcast. Because we had a little bit more dough in the bank, so to speak, whenever we started How to Make a Podcast, we thought, okay, let's see what we can do by, starting it out with ads on Facebook and Instagram that kind of would attract the ideal client, the ideal listener to our podcast. And most of you, I would say 80 to 90% of you out there at this point are listening to this podcast because you initially saw an ad with myself or Nick's face on it, and it asked you, if you wanted a free download. It gave you the option to join our Facebook group, and here you are listening. And so, for us, when we started, we definitely pay, like for How to Make a Podcast, we're definitely very strategic in about paying as well as growing organically at the same time. So for the next little bit, the end of this podcast, we're going to be talking about growing a Facebook group with paid ads and organically at the same time. So yes, to your question, Nick, it can be done, and I think we should just break down how we did it.
Okay. So yeah, we're just going to jump down and kind of share with you exactly the things that we did to grow it or organically. And it is we know, again, we're going to say this beforehand, we know that not everyone has a budget, not everyone has money to do this, but if you are starting something and you do have a little bit of cash, and you really want to grow that, Facebook is a great place to do that. So we're going to talk about what we did with paid ads first. So from the start of how to make a podcast, John referenced this, we offered a lead magnet that also pointed people to our group. And what the lead magnet was, maybe you saw this, maybe that's why you joined this group, but we talked about how we made $250,000 in 18 months of podcasting. And it was just this PDF that shared the different ways that the different things that we had used to monetize our podcast. And whenever you see a Facebook ad that says, I made $15K a month podcasting, that's kind of intriguing, right? I mean, you just think of that, and there's a lot of people that think it's too good to be true. It's not too good to be true. It's real, but it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. Like we put in work to do that. So we had this lead magnet a magnet, like it pulls metal to it. It makes it stick. So that's the idea. It's a lead magnet. It's going to get people to stick to it and be a part of it. And so whenever people clicked on this lead magnet and they downloaded this PDF, we had 3 different places where we asked people, join our Facebook group. We have a completely free Facebook group. Join our Facebook group.
Say that 3 times fast.
Group. Exactly. And so we asked them to join the group whenever they got this download. And so, and the truth is, we've had, I think this lead magnet has generated us over 5,000 email addresses. I mean, it's something.
Yeah, it's over 5,000 now.
Yeah, it's over 5,000. And of those 5,000, we only have 3,000 in our group right now. So there are lots of people that are not joining the group, but they're still getting the content and they're on our email list and all that kind of stuff. But we are saying, hey, here's this freebie. If you want to continue the conversation, we want to continue to see this value that we are adding, go ahead and join our free Facebook group. What do you have to add to that?
And when we did this, I had watched other people, and I was always so confused about how to get a Facebook ad going, how to get it running. And one of my good friends, Carrie Egler, who's been on live with us in our podcast challenge, I hired him to come help me because he had been killing it with his Facebook ads. And I was like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And he came in and sat down with me and set up an ad to run and show up to people that were interested in podcasting, that liked people like Gary Vaynerchuk or Amy Porterfield or Jenna Kutcher or lots of other podcasters. And so we filtered it down to show this ad up to people that were interested in podcasting, that were also entrepreneurial, because we don't just want to attract, people that are like, oh yeah, I might start a podcast. Our goal is to attract people and show them the way to make money podcasting and doing the thing they love. And so that's niched down. Mm-hmm. Which is great. We're not just trying to reach every single person that might want to start a podcast for fun. Yes, we think it's great to do one for fun, but it's even more fun to me if you're doing a podcast for fun that makes you a lot of money. And that's exactly what happened to us. We were doing it for fun at the beginning and it was like, holy crap, we're making a lot of money. And so we put that together from the beginning of how to make a podcast and tried our best to attract the right people and repel the wrong people. Nick mentioned it, but there are a lot of haters. It's like, oh, you guys are just, I saw Nick commenting on a guy last night that was like, this is total BS. Somebody was like, I call this bovine scatology, which means bullshit Nikes. But anyway, it's funny to me and it makes us giggle because it's like, I get it. It seems too good to be true, that kind of thing. And we want to repel the trolls. We don't want, but if you're out there and you're looking at that and you're like, man, if I made $1,000 extra a month podcasting, that would be awesome. And so, now we get you into this ecosystem where, like Nick is saying, you can click a big red button that says join the group, or the first email you get from us says join our Facebook group, because we know if we can get you into the community, you'll be a loyal listener and a loyal fan of what we're doing. And whether or not that equals you buying something from us sooner or later, that's not the point. The point would be to help you grow and that impact that we can have. And we know that if we impact and help enough people, that we get ours in return sooner or later too. So it's just this long-term play for us. And so what that did, Nick, much quicker growth, much quicker growth. We started ads about 80 days ago, 90 days ago, I think so at this point.
I want to
maybe 100.
So we launched
Mid-May?
we launched the first episode of How to Make a Podcast mid-June 2020, and I think we started the group in mid-May, beginning of mid-May of 2020.
So almost 3 months at this point. So maybe 100 days in, and we have over 3,000 people in the group, over 5,000 emails on our email list. We've had several people, purchase products from us in our digital shop. We've had lots more people purchase our course, the podcast blueprint. And we did all this by really, pushing the envelope when it came to paid ads. And I think it's probably a good thing, Nick, to talk a little bit about the feasibility of what you can pay and what you can expect and what we've paid and what we've kind of gotten for that.
Yeah. I will say, just so you can maybe get a little context with the 3,000 in 3 months or so. With How to Film Weddings, we launched that Facebook group. I believe it was in February, March of 2019 is when we launched that group. And today in August of 2020, we're right at about 7,000 members. Okay, so it's been a year and a half, and we have 7,000 members in that group. This one has been not even 3 months, and we're already at 3,000 people. Now, podcasting is a much bigger pond than wedding video, but still, I'm just trying to show you, help you kind of put into context, how these things have gone. And so there is a cost with it, like we said, about growing the group. And we've gotten 5,000 emails. I know we're talking about Facebook groups, but we've gotten 5,000 emails, and we've spent about $3,000 on ads.
I think it's getting closer to 4,000 now.
Okay.
It's somewhere in there, 3,500 or so. But yes, close
but
enough.
Yes, around there, between 35 and 4,000. And we've gotten about 5,000 email addresses, which is about, we have 3,000 in our group. So, for the Facebook group, we're paying a little over $1 a person to join. Okay. But for the email list, we're paying like 68 cents, for email address, to get people to join. So is this a lot of money to some? Yes, absolutely. And we understand that. And to other people who might have really successful businesses and have big marketing budgets, they're like 3,000 people for $1 a piece. Yes, like that's a no-brainer. Okay. So again, we understand, and just depending on where you are, that sinking this much money in might not be worth it to you. We understand that. But for us, it is. And again, we do have the budget because we have set up where we have sponsors on our podcast that are paying us. We have courses and we have digital templates and that kind of stuff. So we are getting money in, and we are, spending that money to grow so that we can eventually continue to make more money.
When we signed up one of our sponsors for How to Make a Podcast, I was able to say, we already have 2,000 email addresses on our list, and it's been 5 weeks. And they were like, oh my goodness, that's incredible. I was like, we already have 1,000 people in our Facebook group. And so I was able to work a deal with our first sponsor by just saying, we've got this many people on our list. We haven't launched yet. If you get in from the beginning, your ads are going to be on the episodes forever. We're pushing out an episode a week, and it gave this extra benefit to them for getting in. But if we didn't have that data, like when you're just getting going, if you don't have a ton of downloads, you got to show data somewhere. And if you say, our Facebook group went from 50 to 600 people in the last month, somebody's going to be like, well, that's a good deal. I like that. And it feels great for them to, if you're using a press kit or sending over information to them and you can show that growth, that is huge. And that has been huge for us. And so what's happened is, the $4,000 we've spent on growing our list and growing our following, we also have more people that have come in that have just been invited. A lot of you are out there inviting new people to the group because you see the healthy community, and it's a great place to grow and learn. And you see our hearts are like, yes, we're here to make money, but we're here to give first. And so, seeing all that and spending all that has made us over 10 times the amount back at this point, almost 20 times the amount back at this point. And so when we are looking at these numbers and saying, if we put in, if you think about it in your podcast and maybe you say, hey, I'm going to spend $150 a month for 3 months. And if that's $450 you spend and you get a lead for $1, if you get somebody in for $1 or so per lead, you have 450 new people in 3 months that are potentially on your list. And that it would be a slower growth than us because we had a little bit more gas to put on the fire. But if we could start How to Film Weddings over again, we probably would have said, hey, we're going to set like a $50 a month budget, 100 something, and hire somebody or work through a lead magnet and building a lead magnet. And I want to say before we jump off today, I'm really excited to have Kerry Egler. He's coming on the podcast soon to talk all about lead magnets and helping you get one set up. He also included a lead magnet. What are we calling it? Lead magnet? We don't know.
I don't remember what we called it, but it's all about creating lead magnets, for your podcast. We'll come up with a much sexier name. I promise.
It's there. I just forgot what it was. It's that good of a name. But the point is, he recorded. He walked through. He was setting up a new ad for us for How to Film Weddings, and this week he recorded setting that up, breaking down how he created the ad, everything about how to create a lead magnet for your business. And so we're going to have him on the podcast, I believe, next week. So stay tuned for that, and he's going to walk through that, and then his hour-long course will be available in our shop soon, and it will be included to everybody that already purchased the Podcast Blueprint course. So lots of great things coming in there. Mm-hmm. We don't have these episodes just to toot our own horn or say, this is what we're doing well. We think that if you're able to invest into your podcast, like, people aren't teaching this when it comes to podcasting. They're just saying, put it out there, share it on Reddit, that's about it. But if you can really get strategic about it and have those dollar bills go out to work for you and come back and bring, potential listeners to your podcast, that's going to be a huge thing for your podcast. Just thinking about 12 months from now, if all you did was ran $100 of ads for 12 months and 1,200 people were on your list this time next year that weren't last year, that is that slow crock pot build. And who knows, by getting those names on your list and growing that list, you might be able to attract a sponsor that might pay you $500 a month, and then you can take 200 of that and say, I'm going to, do $200 a month towards my ads, and then it snowballs on top of itself.
Yeah. One of the things that we really want to point out to you, I know we're talking about growth and numbers and all that stuff, and to have a bigger number just to have a bigger number, what's the point? Okay, there really is no reason, there is no point to growing something just so you can say, oh, I have 10,000 people in my Facebook group. Just to say that. There's no point to that. The reason we have seen such an incredible amount of people join and stay is because we are adding value inside of our groups. Okay, and so if you're trying to grow a group, add value to it. And whenever you have that value and you are sharing and you are encouraging and you are helping and you're bringing value, then some of this other stuff that we're talking about monetizing and getting sponsors and having your email list and having people purchase things, that's where all of that stuff comes in later. But whenever you start your group just to grow it, what's there? There's no point in that. Have a purpose, add value to it. Speaking of adding value, that's one thing that John and I want to have, and we've made no secret that we are trying to make money. This is a business for us, but a big value that we have found is our press kit, and it is now available for you for purchase at our shop. Go to howtomakeapodcast.co/shop, and you can get our press kit. It is 12 pages. There's a Photoshop file. We have a video tutorial that walks you through it. That John walks you through it. If you don't have Photoshop, no worries. We found a completely online program that you can use that is basically just a Photoshop ripoff that you can use. You can follow the exact same tutorial, the exact same steps, and you can create a press kit so that you can show potential sponsors about the growth that you are having. Again, that's howtomakeapodcast.co/shop. John, it has been great catching up with you. Yes. Thanks so much for spending a little bit of time with me. And until next time, we'll see you.
See you guys.